Hello, welcome back everyone to the third video in the Coroutines playlist. And I already said that coroutines are suspendable, so we can pause them and resume them when we want. So let's actually try now pausing a coroutine and then resuming it later. Well, let's go to our global one, for example, and put a delay function here. Let's say 3 seconds, so 300 milliseconds, and let's actually have more than just one log. So this is 1 and this is 2. Let's run the app. So here now my first one is printed, but after 3 seconds the second one is printed. So we could pause our coroutine for 3 seconds, and this can be where the part where we get the data from an API. So this is like telling the UI that hey, we are now loading. So the UI shows us some progress bar, and then this is where we load that. So after loading, telling the UI hey, we finished loading, and then the UI hides that progress bar and shows any data that was loaded. And then we also have one other thing, which is a suspend function. But first, let's just delete this since we don't need them anymore, and let's also delete the name of the thread, and let's have a suspend function. And we already have one right here. As you can see, this delay is a suspend function. As you can see, there is an arrow that has this little thing that it says this is a suspend function, and it blocks the execution of the code. So it blocks it until it's finished. So we can't execute this one until this one is actually finished. And we can create our own suspend functions. And if we open this one, as you can see, public suspend. So we have this suspend keyword that makes a function suspendable. Let's create our own function to get some data from an API. Let's say private suspend fun get API data, for example. And this function to get that API, it will take some time. So let's say delay 4 seconds to get that data. We can also print some things to see what's going on. Start getting data, and here got the data like this. And if we try calling this function inside our main thread, so not inside a coroutine, let's say get data like this, then we get an error and the app won't compile because this is a suspend function that needs to run inside a coroutine. So what we can do here is take it from here and instead run it inside our coroutine, and like this, get API data. So now we can run our function but inside a coroutine, because if we run it right here, then it will block our sequence of code that runs in our UI, which is what we don't want. So we can now delete these and run the app and see what's going on. So here we start getting the data. After 4 seconds we get the data like this. And now let's try for example making more than just one API call. So let's say this is get data 1, and this one is actually got data 1, and let's say we have another API call. Like this one, for example, gets the user, and another one gets like this. So it gets API data 2, and of course 2, and here as well 2. We can launch both of these inside one coroutine. So get API data 2, and all that's going to happen is that this one will have to wait until the first API call is finished. So let's run that and see how that works. So we start getting the data from the first API, we wait for 4 seconds, we got it, and then we start getting the second data, we wait for 4 seconds, and then we got the second data. So these execute like this. But if we want to get both data from different APIs at one time, then what we can do is take this from here and launch a new coroutine. So let's say global scope.launch. As I said, this is not the recommended way. We want to use a different way because these scopes now, or these coroutines, will love as long as the app does, which is what we don't want. But what's going on here is that these are now independent of each other. So this one does not have to wait for this one. And to demonstrate that, let's say this one only takes 3 seconds. And let's run the app and see what will happen. So after 3 seconds, we got the second data, and even if this one starts first, but it finished last because it took more time, which is 4 seconds, and this one started after that one, so after the first one, but it only required 3 seconds to get the data, and then we got the data of it and then the data of the first one. So this is it now for the suspend functions. So how we can create suspend functions that we can use in Kotlin for our coroutines. And in the next video we'll see how we can make a coroutine change its context. So now see you and bye.